D and Davis Show here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. As always, dial us up at 312-564-7375. Earlier, we had on Dale Yates of WLS Notre Dame fame, and right now, we're bringing to you Kristen Ledlow of NBA Inside Stuff. For you kids that didn't grow up watching Inside Stuff, you better watch it now. Right now, we have Kristen. Kristen, can you hear me?
I sure can. Hi, how are you?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate it here. Me, Sydney, Dee, and Kyle, our editor-in-chief of our website. One question we're going to dive straight into with you. Of course, NBA free agency went down and has pretty much kept the sports world captivated during, World Cup and baseball season?
Yeah, knocked everything else out the way.
Fantastic if you're a basketball fan, which we pretty much are. Of course, you're on NBA Inside Stuff. And what were your thoughts of, I guess, the King going back to Cleveland?
Well, that's what I love, first and foremost, is all of us, of course, at work are looking at each other, as the World Cup is going on, as baseball season is in full swing, and we're looking at each other like, well, basketball's still winning, because everybody was online all day on Twitter, on NBA.com, just waiting to see what was going to happen. And, I said before, and I believed it all the way up until the end, that if LeBron James was ever going to leave Miami, it would be to go back home. I just didn't think there was any other way that he could have wrapped up his legacy and, and solidify it as one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest, if he, kind of jumped ship and went somewhere else. So I love the story. It's an incredible kind of prodigal son that we can all root for now. And I don't think that there's anybody, at least in their right mind, in the basketball world who hasn't forgiven, forgotten, and excited to see what he can do with the Cavs this year.
Hi, Kristen. This is D right here. Looking at LeBron James going there now, of course, you have Miami. Not the same team, of course, not having the King on the team, but you have Dwayne Wade, of course, re-up, and you have Chris Bosh, who's really seemed like the big winner of free agency with the huge contract from Miami, and also have a little Chicago connection. You have Luol Deng going out to Miami. So what do you think about Miami's next season, their chances?
Well, this is a winning franchise, so you can't count them out by any means, and Chris Bosh has proven that he's an all-star in his own right, not just a literal all-star that shows up at All-Star Weekend, but he's an all-star in his own right. When Dwayne Wade was sidelined or when they were resting LeBron at the end of the season, Chris Bosh was the guy, and he can carry a team on his back with his own stat line. So I'm not worried about what he's going to be able to accomplish. And we've seen that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra are a championship match. So, I wouldn't count them out in the East by any means just because LeBron is in Cleveland. I think that Cleveland will be a contender. I think that Brooklyn will be yet again. I think that Miami will be. And just all of a sudden with the moves that have been made in the East, it makes it a lot more, a much more even playing field than we saw last year. It kind of seemed like an obvious, Eastern Conference Finals win for the Miami Heat. And this year, I don't think that it's going to be so anymore.
Hi, Kristen. This is Sid here. I wanted to get your take on the Chicago Bulls. Do you think they'll have a chance to get out of the Eastern Conference and make it to the NBA Finals with the moves of Nikolai Mirotic and Paul Gasol?
Oh, I absolutely do. I think that Chicago – did I not mention Chicago before? If I didn't, I apologize, because I should have mentioned that they are certainly going to be a contender in the East. I was sold. I mean, you could not have bet me otherwise that Carmelo wasn't going to end up in Chicago. I was very surprised at that because it seemed like the most perfect basketball fit, for what the Bulls need offensively. I felt Carmelo could provide, and what maybe Carmelo lacks on the defensive end of the floor. I thought that, the Bulls' defensive strategy would have been a perfect fit. It just seemed to complement each other so well. But with him headed back to New York, and like you said, a couple of the other acquisitions the Bulls have made, I do think that Chicago will be a contender as well.
How do you feel about the Knicks going forward? Since we're talking about Carmelo, do you think Phil Jackson's actually going to be able to turn this around? And then on the back end of that, did the Bulls offer Carmelo enough money?
I just think that you're foolish. Not you, just anyone.
It's okay if you think I'm foolish.
He's foolish. He's pretty foolish.
Ask a question that starts with, do you think Phil Jackson can? Because the answer is always yes, and it's always going to be yes. Of course he can turn it around in New York. And, I don't think it was about necessarily the Bulls needed to offer Melo more money. I ultimately do think it was about coming back home, for him anyway, and signing that max deal with the team that he committed to. And so I absolutely think that he he's putting together something special in New York. I was upset, actually, to see that they waived Lamar Odom just a couple of days ago, because I'm really rooting for a comeback from him as well. But I do think that that Phil Jackson's going to do something special in New York.
D and Davis Show right here on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com, talking to Inside Stuff's very own Kristen Ledlow. Kristen, how about this one? You have the Lakers not being able to pick up anybody. Well, we had Carlos Boozer. I don't know. That's a big whoopee-doo for Kobe. You had Houston kind of struck out down there in free agency. Looking at the West, you still have San Antonio, but has anybody so far kind of piqued your interest out there who can kind of take on the San Antonio Spurs?
I'm excited to see what Steve Kerr, my former colleague, can do with the Golden State Warriors. That's going to be a fun season. And Oklahoma City, you can't count them out either. With KD and Russell Westbrook, you can never count them out as long as those two are still paired up in one city. So OKC, Golden State, the Clippers. Yet again, I mean, think about what the Clippers may or may not have been able to accomplish had they not been just swarmed with distraction when it mattered most this season. So, I think that the Clippers will be, yet again, a contender, and the team that we saw kind of emerge out of nowhere in the Portland Trailblazers this season as well.
Yeah, very true, very true. Now, all those teams have great starting point guards, and bring it back to Chicago with Derrick Rose. We have him now hopefully being healthy enough, of course, for the season, but seems to be he's going to play for the USA team. If you were the general manager with John Paxson, Gar Forman, how do you feel about Derrick Rose playing for U.S. basketball, or would you want to save him for the upcoming NBA season for Chicago Bulls?
Well, that's tough, because if I were Derrick Rose's general manager, selfishly I would want to make sure that he was healthy to play for my franchise. I'm the guy who's signing checks, but at the same time, I think it's such a cool thing what these guys are able to do by putting together such an all-star lineup and go represent our country, that I don't think, at least not publicly, that any GM is going to stand out, against that.
Speaking of Derrick Rose and his ownership, do you think he should get out there more and talk to other players as far as recruiting them to come to Chicago? We know supposedly he's supposed to be real shy, but when someone's giving you that type of payment and you're not even playing the last 2 years, do you think he should have been out there and helped guys kind of recruit and come down to Chicago?
I mean, is that his job? It's not really his job to sell somebody else on coming to the Chicago Bulls. It's his job to be the best point guard in the league and to lead that franchise to potentially a championship. So, I was a bit torn on that when people were upset that, he may or may not have been part of the meeting with Carmelo and that he initially refused to talk to him or whatever. I don't think it's his job. I do think that it's helpful when guys like him are there and present for those recruiting meetings for the huge free agents. But at the same time, you can't criticize the guy for not doing something that's not necessarily part of what he signed up for anyway, right?
True, but okay. Now, of course, we know, and we'll get into it in a second, you work with, if he wasn't injured until LeBron came out, he's probably going to be the greatest small forward of all time. And I'm sure
Grant Hill.
And I'm sure you want to kind of find out the chemistry, and you want to be wanted. And anybody, when someone's offering you something, especially if you have other opportunities, you want to be wanted. And if a player won, he would have been making more than you if you would have signed the deal to what the Bulls were offering, and he's been injured, and you would have had to take a large burden on. You probably would want to know, does that guy really, really want you? Now, we know supposedly through back channels that Derrick Rose let Carmelo and his people know that. But to a certain extent, no, it's not D. Rose's job. But I think most of us out here, and most of us work corporate jobs or something like that, you end up having to do stuff that's not necessarily in your job. It's not detailed in your job. Kristen?
Yeah, so what are you asking me?
My butt was, I see what you're saying, but no, not exactly, because usually you have to do things that you don't want to do. Like, I mean, majority of times that you're asked, okay, this is in your job description, but usually you do a couple other things that aren't necessarily in your job description.
No, yeah. So, I mean, agree to disagree. I think that if he wanted to be there and be part of it, it likely would have been helpful. It could have made the sale, but, I don't think that it's something that he should be criticized for not being part of.
D and Davis Show, ChicagolandSportsRadio.com, talking to Kristen Ledlow of NBA's Inside Stuff. Now, as Ken said in the open, I think we're all of the age where we grew up watching the original NBA Inside Stuff with Amar Rashad. Talk to us a little bit about that, the process of getting the show back up and going. It's been on for a few years, but how you was able to get involved with the show and where you see the show going.
Well, it's funny because when Grant and I were rehearsing the day before we taped episode 1 of this past season, we looked at each other and we were like, we're about to film the sequel to the movie that everybody loves. And everybody goes into the sequel of a movie, like, wanting to hate it. You go into Iron Man 2 thinking, all right, they better not have messed this up. It doesn't matter what it is. If you love the original, you're going to think they better not mess this thing up. And so that's kind of what we felt we were taking on. So from the very beginning, we kind of talked about it. And Grant said, I don't want to be Ahmad Rashad. I don't want to try and be like him. And I don't even want to try to fill the shoes of Summer Sanders or Willow Bay. And, we went into it and just said, hey, let's just do our own thing. Let's make this fun. And, I'm a diehard NBA fan, and Grant Hill is a longtime NBA superstar. So, we felt that we could bring something special and different to the Inside Stuff franchise, and that's what we hope to do in year 1. And now I think it's going to be a lot bigger and better for year 2. I've been excited all summer long because we've had so many meetings about the direction that we're taking the show and how much bigger and better that it's going to be this season. So I'm really excited for year 2.
Kristen, this is Kyle. You mentioned the previous host of Inside Stuff, Willow and Summer, and they were pretty great, but they didn't have. I think you got an edge on them because unlike them, you've been able to challenge Shaq to a free throw contest, and I just want to know, are you gonna get at them for the rematch this coming year on Inside NBA?
Shaquille and I discuss often the rematch that we're going to be. In fact, we actually had a rematch planned a couple of times that Shaq then had to back out of for some unknown reason, which, yeah, of course, exactly, right? But we've actually talked about kind of upping the stakes and making it from behind the three-point line, and so we're certainly planning something for this season, and it may not be just free throws.
I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Hi, Kristen, this is Sid again. I just want to set this up very quickly. During the first season of Inside Stuff you had on one of your earlier episodes, Portland Trail Blazers point guard Damian Lillard had a challenge to his Twitter followers all season long, every Friday, to give 4 bars in a hook for a rap battle. From my understanding, I actually watched the episode. You and Grant Hill had your own rap battle, and while yours was good, in my opinion, Grant Hill's, according to you, you correct me if I'm wrong, his sounded like a novel, as you say. If I'm correct, am I correct on that?
Yeah, like a 4-bar Friday, he did like 32 bars. He was a ghostwriter. Like he had a rapper write his rap. That's not right. That's not fair.
I wanted to ask you, the next time you come on our show, I, Sid the Kid from the D and Davis Show, want to challenge you in a friendly rap battle. Do you accept my challenge?
Oh my if I know in advance what we're rapping about, I have to be able to prepare.
All right.
I'll let you choose the subject.
Yeah.
Can't believe we have a rap
unless after I rhyme Caucasian with sensation, I'm pretty much done.
Oh, that's great. You won
of the day.
You won my heart with that one.
Right.
Kristen, let's find out now the whole Derrick Rose thing is over. We're in love. Listen. Let me ask you about yourself. All right, it seems like I think you're from North Florida. Where exactly were you born and raised?
Yeah, I am. Nice research there, buddy. Tallahassee, yes.
Okay, so you're from Tallahassee. So are you an FSU fan?
Of course I am. Die hard, born and raised.
And who was your favorite basketball team growing up in North Florida? Since there's no team in North Florida, were you a Miami fan or Atlanta fan? Like, how'd that go?
No, I actually, I lived in Tallahassee all of my childhood until about middle school, and for 5 years, my family moved down to Orlando, and that just so happened to be the time where Shaq was playing down there, Grant Hill was playing down there, Penny was down there, my boy Dennis Scott was down there, so I became an Orlando Magic fan. Yeah, I became an Orlando Magic fan as a kid, and then, that carried on throughout, even when we moved back to Tallahassee before high school. I was a Magic fan, and my very first ever internship in this business was with the Orlando Magic. So I've been a diehard Magic fan since the time I was a kid.
And you yourself, you're an athlete. You played volleyball. Did you play basketball also?
I did, yeah. I played actually basketball in college as well. A lot of people, I think just because I played volleyball through my entire college career, think of me as a volleyball player. But I went to college actually to play basketball, and after my freshman season, the volleyball coach asked me to come out to some of the volleyball practices just because he needed somebody who could jump to block against his girls. So, you know, I'm out there practicing with them, and he said, well, you know, if you'd like a spot on the team, then, you know, you can come on and play with us as well. So I was like, oh, you know, heck with it. Might as well, and it would get me out of preseason basketball conditioning. So I started, you know, I told the coach that I accepted that I would play volleyball that fall, and, you know, he said, you're never going to get to play, but you can be on the team. Well, that summer, something happened to both the starter and the backup in the position that I played, and come that fall, I was a starter on our college volleyball team. So I had to learn how to play volleyball really fast. But yes, I did play both in college.
Kristen, do you have anything coming up you want our listeners to check out in the future?
Oh, man. Well, I actually have vacation coming up, guys. Thanks for asking. I have been, oh, man, so we had the NBA Finals in San Antonio and Miami, and then I was in Cleveland for the NBA Draft, and then Las Vegas for the last 8 days for the NBA Summer League, so I'm looking forward to some time off. But I will plug my boy Rick Fox's show is tonight on NBA TV. Right after the starters. It's going to be right around midnight. He and I were shooting things all week long in Vegas. It's going to be called Fox After Dark. It's really funny, really fun. Just, you know, kind of everything that was going on non-basketball in Vegas. So make sure you check that out on NBA TV.
Thank you so much, Christian, for checking us out and hopping in with us. And maybe during the season coming up for the Bulls, we're able to get back in contact with you and talk a little Bulls basketball.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank
you, Kristen.
Thank you.
That was Kristen Ledlow of NBA's Inside Stuff right here on D and Davis Show. On the other side of the break, I believe we're going to have Brinson, right?